aspect, deep work on working on fragmented data silos. As we all know that AI, it thrives on data, and today most of the LLMs, what they have done is they've definitely scraped internet and they're doing really well. But the value of the work or what an answer an LLM would give is present based on what it can fetch from the actual data, which means in enterprises and organizations, there's a wealth of information. There's wealth of information stuck in PDFs, stuck in documents, which people have a fear of not giving it to AI. So there is a fear, there's lack of trust today, and that data, it stays where it is, like digitized. So for example, there could be an entrepreneur, say in Nagpur, wanting to know about the scheme applied for the biotechnology plant that she wants to put up in Nagpur. Now, if you see, the MSME industry has a scheme for her, for women, for biotechnology, and it's very good subsidy that's available. But where is it stuck? It's stuck in a government notification which came out, which she's not aware of. And what she is doing is, she's actually going to LLMs and asking that question, and she's not getting it. She's also searching it on various places, she doesn't get it. So that's the divide, the information divide which is existing. And the information which is there which is there stuck in documents or in even digitized form, that has to be AI ready. So that in a safe, trusted, and these two are very important, safe and trusted manner, the data can be linked, made useful, and then made available. Now this is a long journey. This is a long journey. It's not an easy journey, because the data journey is about how you clean the data, you make it ready, you link it, you make it relevant, you make it useful, and then present it in a manner so that the choice, and you want to have a choice of various LLMs of, this, I mean, we live in the age of choice, right? We don't want to be locked into anything particular. So that's the data problem that we have in front of us. The opportunity is humongous, because there is, I'll give you an example, 3,000, I'm talking to an organization which does 3,000 entities, and the 3,000 entities actually manage 5 million new compliances in a year. They have those kind of queries, 5 million queries on new compliances, forget existing compliances, because there are new compliances which get generated by the government, by various bodies, and then they have to search. So the problem is humongous, and it can be bridged. It can be bridged, but we have to think about how to make data interoperable, useful, and AI ready. So with that background, I'd like to get into our panel and talk to some of the experts that we have today. My first question is to Rohitji, who's from MOSPI. So India generates a vast amount of statistical and administrative data. MOSPI actually, for all of you, it calculates a GDP for India. They have the source of all the data at village and taluka level. So the data is there. But as you think about making data AI ready, what do you think is the responsibility of institution? How, yours is an institution, to make the data trusted, safe, and available to all?
Thank you, Salini. Good morning, everyone. So, trusted, safe, and ready for everyone, AI ready. I'll like all of you to take a step back on this and just let us understand, do you have a uniform definition of what is AI readiness at this point in time? Do we have, and I'll not say that it's not there in the ecosystem, it's there in the ecosystem, but do we have an agreement about it? So there are two issues we need to understand when we talk about AI readiness of data. One is that, so let me just go back to today's conversation I had with one of my colleagues over a WhatsApp group. We all are very active there. So one of my papers is just been accepted in one of the largest conference, and it's about AI readiness of data. And he asked me, what's so great about it? So I asked, why, what is not so great about it? So he asked me, I put Bangla into ChatGPT and it completely understands. So what's new you are doing? So the point I'm trying to make is people are not aware what it takes to make data AI ready. We all understand, and then he asked me that, no, but it's not understanding, and he talked about some of the dialect of this country, and we have huge number of dialects. And Salniji, I asked him, and he asked me that, how do I train ChatGPT on this dialect? I said, it's not my job, it's Sam Altman's job. So the issue here is that we don't know, and that is the biggest responsibility of our institutions like MOSPI, to make people aware what AI readiness is all about. And then AI readiness means, if I start talking about there should be a context file, there should be semanticity, there should be metadata, and but many of us, sorry about that, many of us, it looks, it would not make sense. So the first idea is to create a framework, agreed framework, say people, not only me, it's not about my way or highway, me, Prem, all of us work together, create that framework, put it up for people to know. The first thing I would do, and I plan to do it literally, is try to create a slide deck saying what AI can see and what human can see. So my folder, if it has 10 versions of budget 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if I ask a question from that folder, some answer will come from budget 1, some answer will come from budget 2, because unlike human, where I am focused on this question, AI is designed to scan the entire thing available. So it's a big difference between human and AI. I can be focused. AI, once I give a thing to AI, it will just scan everything it has in its domain. So I would say starting point, and not taking much of a time, starting point should be that let us create this framework, let us have a shared understanding, let us have a core AI readiness part and an aspirational AI readiness part and work on it.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant because you cannot leapfrog into everything. You have to be like, I mean, you can have aspirational, but the foundation is very, very important. And everybody joining that foundation, that foundation exercise is really important. I'll go to you, Prem, and let's talk about data commons. Data commons aims to make public data more accessible and usable. You're from Google and you have put all this in open source. You've been working on US Census data being available. Tell us some more about your experiments and how data commons is kind of ready or prepared to work on this challenge.
Thank you for having me here on this panel today. I think one of the areas I'll start with is the importance of coming to that understanding on AI-ready data, but understanding that the field itself is moving quite quickly at the same time, right? So whatever agreements we come to today, in 6 months, it feels like we're dealing with a brand new technological landscape that we're staring down. What Data Commons tried to do was say that if we can get our data in that machine-readable format, which means structured, which means machine-readable metadata also, and a format where that format specification is not stuck behind a 500-page PDF, right? Can we make that in a way that the machine can understand it, interpret it, and then use it? Our theory behind this is that idea of a knowledge graph from that data combined with the large language model gives you a much better chance of success to answer your question. So with Data Commons, what we try to do is we try to bring multiple data sets globally together in a common knowledge graph, and then put an AI search engine on top of it so that you can quickly access that data. You can play with this yourself at datacommons.org. But what we did is we open sourced the entire stack, because this idea that that data is centralized with one source is also the dangerous part, and it shouldn't be, right? The data should be federated. It should be located at every organization and governed locally by the organizations that are using it. And so one of the things we've done by open sourcing that stack is allowed, for example, the United Nations Statistical Department to use data commons as their backend. And so, UN SDGs, WHO data, ILO data, so on and so forth, is all stored in this common interoperable database now, where instead of a data analyst spending 80% of their time renaming column headers, they can actually focus on the data analysis so that we can get the impact and the outcomes we want to see. Hope that helped answer the question.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'll poke you a little bit more to understand on data commons. What's a vision you have?
So a very simple vision, right? Which is make data-aware decision-making the easy answer to take. Today, right now, the majority of the world is flying blind. Whether you're one of those 74 million MSMEs in India, you can't afford a bevy of computer scientists and data scientists that you can hire. You pay a tax to play with any data. If you're a policymaker thinking about climate change, poverty, education, health, these are holistic problems. It's no longer I can go to one ministry, pull one spreadsheet, and solve poverty.
Yeah.
I need to endemically understand how does education, how does health outcomes, how does income and economy, how do all of these affect poverty locally, right? And that's the problem we have today, that the world is a multidimensional problem. The other problem is our brains are not inherently multidimensional.
Yes.
Our brains are great in 3 dimensions. You add a 4th dimension, which is time, and we're okay, right? Like, look at climate change. You add time, and it's greater than our lifetime. We can't think about it, which is why we're not solving it, right? But the majority of problems are 50, 60-dimensional problems. Machines are really good at this, by the way. And humans are good at using tools that are good at doing things we're not.
Yeah.
And this is where we have to approach AI as a tool we can use. Not as the answer, but as a tool we can use to derive the answer, to supplement our brains in the areas we're not good at.
Yeah. I'll poke you a little bit more, but later.
Salini, just want
Yes.
to take a second stab on that, and just a quick, interjection on that. I'm a statistician, so I'll be very happy if some of my work can be done by AI, all those large language models. I just read a paper today in the morning. It's been written by 2 undergraduates from a Canadian university, and they said, and they proved it, that if you give same prompt to AI with the same data set, it gives you 2 types of analysis. So this is something I just wanted to flag, that we should not be really gung-ho about things which is still untested. But yes, I would be the first to adopt an AI and use it for my work, but it needs to be, as you rightly put up, trustworthy.
Yeah, I just comment on this, the stability of an answer, that's what you're talking about. We are actually working to create a benchmark onto this, because the same thing we are doing, like Amul AI was launched today in the morning, by the Prime Minister, and the same thing applies to Bharat Vistar, and we are actually working to see that the same question, if you ask multiple times across LLMs, and also to one LLM many times by different farmers, both options, you get different answers. And that, can we make it as a benchmark? That's what we are working at also, because this is a benchmark which is like needed really on the ground, right? So that's a part. So I wanted to comment. I'll go to to Mr. Ashish. You're from the industry, and you work with IIIT Bangalore. Tell us more about the research in the data area, plus how institutions can help build it all together.
Right. So I think my perspective is more as a practitioner, because the last almost 3 decades, I've been a solution builder. So I have seen data not from the data side, but from the solution side, trying to exploit it, trying to use it for the solutions. And I'll come to the institution part of it. But when I look at the data and the challenges which are there associated with it, and for last 10, 12 years, I have been for AI for social problems or digital for, like women and child health, I worked for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Now, one of the problems that I realized is that the world is fast moving, where you don't manage a transaction, you manage a journey, okay? And that is the agentic AI and all those things that we are talking about. Now, when I was working a few years back on the women and child data, I realized how fragmented it is. Okay, the two main data sets, if you look at a child's health, okay, his anthropometric data, his nutrition data is with women and child development through their Anganwadi program. If you look at the birth data, the immunization data, and a lot of other data, it is with the health and family welfare department. And if you have to have an integrated decision making across for that child, what needs to be done, and then you have to look at both the data. But that burden of orchestration comes onto the person who is solution making. The data does not by itself flows through the workflow. And that is one of my biggest problem that we have to solve, that we look at data sets in isolation, but we don't look at how it flows through the process, okay? The second thing which I said, the contextualization, I mean, we all have read the book, at least some of them, that raw data is an oxymoron. Data always resides in a particular context and with some standardization associated with it so that you can make some sense out of it, okay? Now with education, when we were working recently, we realized that LLMs are becoming increasingly good, at least with the main languages, not with the, all the dialects, but in good translation. The moment they hit any domain-specific vocabulary, that's when they start failing. Okay, even the class 6th physics question, all these frontier models is not able to properly translate. So we came up with a solution of using a glossary combined with the LLM so that it does a decent job in terms of overall translation, and user is transparent to that thing. So contextualization. And the third thing which I faced a lot is that when we talk of public data, a lot of it is declared data and not verifiable data. Especially when a lot of planning depends on surveys. And a lot of survey data is actually declared data. Whether you have a hypertension or not, yes, no. Whether you have this problem, yes, no. What is the verification? No doctor has actually verified that this thing. And you are going to make a decision based on that. So in my opinion, the AI-ready data has to solve these three big problems. It has to be interoperable, it has to be contextual, and it should actually, the third problem that I was saying that, it should be verifiable. It should be verifiable and governable as an extension of that.
Very relevant. I think you have posed the right challenge. So Prem, I'm going to come to you, right? What is how I mean, let's just pick one of them, which is contextualization, because I'm increasingly seeing that domain information is needed, and people are creating these glossaries to add, like even in agri, when we had to roll out Mahavistar, we actually created glossary of 5,000 terms, which is, it is in Marathi. So, it has to be in Marathi and those terms being used. And I know we did some experiments and we have created a sandbox environment. You have done it for India. So why don't you explain that how contextualization and domain can be added to Google Data Commons and how it can be helpful?
I think this idea of contextualization and localization is very important. At the end of the day, these are large language models, right? Language being the key word there. They're not data models, right? And so to, what Mr. Bharadwaj said earlier, what you want to be able to do is use them to write code to manipulate data, because code is language. But you don't necessarily want them to be producing data on their own. And one of those problems that you have today is also those large language models are essentially created largely off the web, which has its own biases inherent in it, both language and locality-wise. And then on top of that, the example you used on the full folder of all the budgets, right? The example I like to use for this is actually if you ask a large language model about a celebrity that recently had a breakup, they'll tell you they're together because it doesn't know what just happened over the last month, right? It's very sad. And so this is where you can use, though, the combination of, you called it a glossary, I always call it a knowledge graph. What is that factual basis of information that I can put together? Now, it's always going to be a subset of the whole, right? I might be able to cover maybe 0.1% of the world's information with a knowledge graph. But if I can ground it in those facts, can I then utilize the intelligence of the large model to then help me produce some knowledge from those facts or fill in the gaps in those facts? And so this, I think, is an opportunity that we actually have in the technology to move it forward. This is one of the areas that we're actively working on as a team. But again, to do that, you first need that glossary of facts, right? This is where having that knowledge graph of statistical data, even if imperfect at this moment, because it is survey collected, it is dependent on the quality of the question asked, the error bar shown, the quality of that metadata, so on and so forth. But it is a starting point from which you can get more information and use that intelligence to potentially even find those outliers or areas that don't match what you might be hearing on the ground. So that's the opportunity I think that we have.
To that, because I absolutely agree with you, but I will say it in more direct terms. Because sometimes we feel that LLMs, or in previous version, the AI models, are the solution. They are not the solution. They are only one of the inputs to the solution. And they comprise 10%, 15% of what you're trying to do. It is what is the rest of 85% what is doing. Yes, LLM will give different answer. How are you compensating with guardrails, human in the loop, risk assessment? These are the tools which are available today. So if you have to build, because at the end of it, it's a probabilistic model, okay? Come what may. And I was talking to a mathematician from MIT, and he explained why it will never become perfect. Why it is grounded, that fact is grounded in mathematics, that it cannot ever become as perfect that every time consistent that we are wanting it to be ever. Because then you are taking the main source of its creativity away from it. So what you have to focus is outside, not inside. That's all I wanted to say.
If I agree with you completely, and I started by saying it's a tool, right? And we use tools to supplant ourselves, not to replace ourselves, right? To supplement our knowledge, not to replace our knowledge. So I do agree with you, it's a tool, but we have to be careful throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, in the sense that that tool now makes things available to the average person. It upskills the average person in a way that they couldn't themselves before. So if we immediately go to put guardrails, prevent access, things like that, we're preventing a large part of society. And I'll say, as somebody who worked on Google search for many years, there were many arguments in Google search that we, for example, shouldn't put health information on search, because the average person isn't smart enough to be able to deduce information about their own health from Google. But the average person can't afford a doctor also, right? There are endemic problems in society that prevent you from doing that. So is the answer to that question suffer, or is the answer to that question do less harm and give people a pathway that they can learn from? And so that's an important question to ask ourselves here as we think about AI, which is, yes, it is imperfect at this moment. Can we understand? Can we educate? Can we work inside the system that exists? But we can't ignore it either. We can't say it made one mistake, therefore I will not use it. And I will also call out the imperfection of us as humans is also very much there, right? So there are many times we look at these systems and we look at a Waymo autonomous vehicle and we said, look, it had 6 accidents last year. The 30,000 deaths from car accidents in the US a year, right? And so statistically speaking, this is still much safer, right? And so these are the sorts of examples that we have to look at, understand where to apply it, how to apply it, and what the overall societal good is from using it.
Yeah. No, thanks. I think a very relevant discussion that we are having, and there's always a fight between should we have RAG architecture or should we just, give all to LLM to do it because it has more capacity and more, GPU. But either or is not possible. There's it's like so much of pros and cons on that. You don't want to give, you maybe want to keep the data, and the sovereignty comes in quite a lot. And this has been a discussion in the last 2 days in most of the panels that I have been, that you want to keep your data, countries want to keep the data with themselves, and they actually don't want to train, because choice of LLMs is like you want a lot of choice and you want to use here, there, everywhere, right? So that's it. So I'll come back to you, Rohit ji, and see, we talked about administrative data, and you talked about a framework. So my question is that how do you think alternate data, secondary data, beyond administrative data, how can that be also brought in? And your framework, which you talked about, that there should be a foundational framework, if that framework is adopted by industry, one, is it possible? And two, what kind of data economy it can start?
Salini ji, so this is early morning. Let me take a audience poll on it. So, how many of you think that what Salini ji asked is a governance issue, or is it a, I mean, just raise your hand if you feel it's a governance issue. Anyone who feels it's a governance issue? How many of you feel it's a technological issue? What she asked, how to make alternative data ready for AI. That's what the question was. So how many of you feel it's a there is no prizes for it, there is no punishment for it. So feel free to raise your hand the way you think. It's a technology. So, okay. So I am with that gentleman. I feel it's a governance issue, and I'll also work on it. So what are we talking about? We are talking about data generated from different sources, be it alternative data sources, be it like administrative data sources. The panelist with my co-panelist just talked about getting data from different sources, not aligned to each other. So it's a governance issue which we need to understand first. We need to create, and of course, I completely agree with Salini ji when she said that we need a federated model, or perhaps Prem said that we need a federated model. There cannot be one whole sole owner for a data of this country, or for that matter, for any country. What, as somebody needs to play the role of data steward. Somebody needs to orchestrate this data ecosystem. And that, perhaps, being from NSO, I have my own biases, so I'll say NSO can do it, but of course, that's something for the people to decide. Now, let's understand this. What do we need when we need AI-ready data? We need, first, a cataloging of it. I'm just going to take 1 minute on it. Cataloging of it. You should have everything cataloged. Any industry, any government organization, this is my data set, these are the indicators, these are the definitions, and so on and so forth. I'm not getting that deep into it. You need a catalog of your data sets. And if that's not there, second thing is, that catalog should not be PDF. That catalog should be, as she was saying, machine readable. JSON file, probably. Many other ways are there, but let's talk about JSON file. Second point, you should have metadata for it. If you don't have metadata for it, I mean, other day I was with another panel with Prem, I said the thing which irritates me the most is lack of metadata. I don't know, I'm then driving in blind. I don't know what the word frequency means. It may mean hundreds of things. So you should have metadata, and again, not in PDF. So when whatever I'm talking about is, I mean, JSON or XML, and there are so many ways, but machine readable, let's put it that way. Third is, you should have a context file. So now machine has read it. Now, but it wants to know that where do I find the meaning of frequency? So machine should have a context file where the source is written, you go there and see, you will find the meaning of frequency. So metadata will not have frequency, meaning of frequency. It will only write frequency means quarterly. So machine now needs to understand what does that frequency means. So that what she was talking about, and Prem again was talking about, we need to have bring us to we need to have a business glossary. We need to have a business glossary. What he also talked about, a knowledge graph, I mean, just a sophisticated version of business glossary. That we need to have. So once we have sorted this out, we need to work, what type of codes are we working? So the gentleman just beside me just talked about two data sources using different codes for different thing. I mean, same thing. So then we have to standardize that codes. And then lastly, we have to structure our data. Data needs to go in a structured database. It should be defined by, and that's nothing new I'm talking about. It should be defined by dimensions. It should be defined by attributes. It should be defined by its role. So time means temporal. You can't write time and expect LLM to understand what does time mean. You have to say time means temporal. And once you have these ready, these available in a, so there are two use cases, Salini, and just last quick observation from my end. One is that, am I using it for my own use case? Am I training my own model for it? Then I can put all these in one file and feed it to my model. But if I'm expected to create a MCP for my database, then I have to create separate files, put it up in a URI or URL where any model can go, the connector can direct it to that model, that place, that resource place, and then the things happen. And this is all I'm talking from my personal experience when and Salini knows about it, when we developed our own MCP server for our national data portal. So these are the steps one needs to follow if one needs to aspire to become AI ready for data, especially for the structured data.
So thank you so much, and for all the audience, MOSPI just released their 10 data sets, putting an MCP server in front of it, and the public is just loving it. The amount of reach out which has happened to use the data sets for, you can actually find out, you can ask a question of what's been the price of, how has the price of moong dal been in the last a whole year or whole quarters or month wise. So that capability is there now, and it has happened because it was always there. They do the calculation of the wholesale price index, the commodity price index. So the data was there. It's just that now it is AI ready for people to consume, take, and then ask, and it is connected to Claude and ChatGPT. Ashish, I'll go to I'll go to you for, because building on what Rohitji stopped at, which is the use cases, and you come from the solution part of it. How do you visualize and imagine solutions and use cases combining, say, administrative data and alternate data? I'm not going into personal data because there's a lot of consent there, but at least a lot of secondary sources of data which is available, and how do we combine and make it more powerful?
I think, as I, as you rightly pointed out, I come from the solution perspective, okay? And a solution now with agentic AI coming in, we look at every solution in form of a journey. We are going past the mechanism of point solution that you ask, it reverts back with the answer. And now the use case has to decide at which part of the journey what data is that you need, okay? And that will dictate whether it is a additional data sets which are outside or it is a public data set, it will be do. The only challenge which I see here is the who is accountable for that data? How is it audited? How is the access to that data enforced? Okay, all these are practical challenges which need to be, and especially if it is extraneous data from outside sources, then it becomes even more important because how it is grounded in truth. That is very important. If that we can solve, I think the use case will take care of the burden of orchestration across both the public data set, which are more verifiable, and external, provided you have the accountability and the enforcement and the auditability nailed down.
And how can we put these governance mechanisms in place? And what are the challenges and how we should, I mean, any best practices there?
So I have not done, I'm moving, we are all moving, my lab is moving in that direction. But what we are saying is that it will, and you talked about the MCP servers and all that, through manual policy sets, it will never happen. If you want, it has to be embedded in the solution at the API level, at the policy engine level, which are actually going along with the solution, and it should happen, it should be enforceable automatically. If you are thinking that a human being will actually enforce that policy, it will break in no time. So that is what we are trying to do, is to create those reusable artifacts as DPIs or DPGs, it will fall into one of those categories. But where it allows those policies to be set for a data set in an easy reusable way so that everybody doesn't have to recreate from scratch those kind of policies, and then that's the way to move forward.
Yeah. You mentioned your lab. I'm sorry, I'll just poke you onto that. Tell us more about your lab. What more work they are doing?
So that's my current job. Previously, I was heading a Gen AI company, by the way, and I will talk separately later on PDF challenge, okay, which we thought we had solved it. We didn't fully, but we were on the way. But the current lab, which is very exciting, it's a collaboration between Microsoft and IIIT Bangalore. A4I stands for AI Innovation for Inclusion Initiative. That means we create large scale. The idea is not here to run pilots, that we do this small thing here, we diagnose, not that. It should be population scale, and we want to launch it as a DPG so that it can be largely. So we are working on education, school education area. We are working with teachers in terms of making their life easy. We are working in terms of accessibility. How blind children can actually be taught STEMs, so that they can actually become a mathematician. They can hope to become a physicist, mathematician. Today it's very difficult. How to even read a book. Uh, And the third one we are doing is with working with the last mile health workers. Our current solution is a RAG-based AI combination, but we are looking at exactly that problem which you mentioned, that either it is this or that. I think there's answer. There are plenty of answers which are in between, and that was what we are exploring.
Okay, thank you so much. Prem, I'll again build on the concept that we were discussing on the use cases which can be. I mean, I just want you to paint a picture of if you have data in knowledge graphs, like what you mentioned, if the data is there and data commons is present, I just want you to visualize that what more use cases can be possible with secondary data. How can India benefit, and not just India, global South benefit from this? So and please feel free to paint the use cases which you have built, in the sandbox environment that you have. You can just take those examples and.
Yeah, I'll give two very, these might not be exactly where the sandbox is today, but where it could go tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And so I'll give two very different examples here. One is, at the end of the day, the Ministry of Statistics does a lovely job collecting as much information as they can. The Home Ministry does, the government does. It's a top-down data collection. In addition to that top-down data collection, we have data collected by industry bodies, by civil society, nonprofits.
I'm sorry, I'll just interrupt you. I think Rohitji will say it's not top down. It's actually at the field level. It's bottoms up.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, he will say that it's bottoms
That's
up.
fair.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
You're correct. It's bottom up. That said, we have alternate data sources also that are there. Sometimes they supplement and they further show, yes, the data collected is correct. At times they disagree, right? And those disagreements are also interesting to understand to the point of where is the survey question flawed, or where is the civil society seeing something or has visibility into something that we don't have access to, right? And so the more of these data sets that come together, these points of friction, again, this is where the human intelligence comes in. Show me the points of friction faster. I have a haystack full of needles. Which needles do I pay attention to, right? So this is one example if I'm at the government or the Ministry of Statistics level. Now let's go to the completely opposite end. I'm a small business owner. I'm setting up a physical shop. Where should I set it up, right? Where I set it up depends on mobility traffic, depends on the demographics and affordability in that space, depends on all types of things, right? It's a large data question. But that MSME owner is often ill-equipped to answer any of those questions, is often taking a shot in the dark. And that shot in the dark is a costly shot in the dark if they're wrong, right? Because they're taking the full risk of that decision. Now, with the data commons that we're building, the question becomes, can we reduce that risk for that individual? Can we help them model, understand, de-risk the decision they're making based on the audience they want, based on the footfalls they want, based on the location that they're choosing? That's a very specific example now. But these are two very opposite examples of how bringing all of this data together, which we often think about as more aligned towards, the international organizations or the government minister, but is actually usable on the ground by an individual too.
Tell us a bit more about, like, if suppose someone wants to put up a data commons instance, how can they get started?
It's actually quite simple. It's easy enough that I can do it myself, which means you can. But it's datacommons.org is an open source platform. We have a 20-minute guide to get started. You can set the whole thing up on your computer, have your CSV data set, bring it in. And the thing is, once you bring one data set in, it overlays with all the data sets already in Data Commons. This creates sort of a network effect to the data, right? So once I bring in, if I am a chain store in India trying to figure out that next store location, if I bring in all my per store sales revenue data once, then suddenly I can compare that to the 50,000 data sets and overlay them that are already in Data Commons. Before, if I wanted to do this as a chain store in India, I would normally have my people come up with maybe 10, 12 different hypotheses. Because then I have to get those 10, 12 different data sets, and I have to form 13 different data transforms, right? So that they're all in the same format. That prevents us from being able to have that level of creativity we want, where we can look across the entire landscape of the problem set. And so this is sort of one of the things.
The right answer. And it was a matter of trust for NSO also, that people are getting different answers for a data which is created by NSO. That makes us look toward MCP server. It is open, so it makes our data interoperable for all the AI, almost all the AI system. I'm not saying all the AI system. Otherwise, what would I be aware that every LLMs have their own standards of API. So you create those APIs first, and then you somehow manage the LLM to approach that API. With this connect, it's like C socket for the phone charger, if I may use the parallel, where you can just plug in any C socket you can use for anything. I mean, that's what the MCP is. So data comes and the LLM comes and plugs into MCP. And it allows any LLM to come. But what you have to do now, that you have to connect that small tool with that LLM. So that's a 1-minute job, and it's available on our website. You go there, www.mosby.gov.in, and the offering section, everything is available. You can do it in 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes at the most, anyone. But still, there is one challenge, Salniji, which I must tell you, is that somehow we need to ensure that this becomes a default tool. The user does not have to add it. Forget somebody forgets it. Then the same situation starts happening again. So right now, people have to add it to their tool, but the biggest advantage I see is that people doesn't have to come out of their workflow. So if I have taken a very costly pro Claude, then I don't have to come out of it, go to my portal to get the data analysis. I can keep using the intelligence of Claude or ChatGPT. I don't have a preference for that, with the verified data, as he talked about verified data of Mosby. And the use cases are innumerous on the web now. People have just lapped it up. My favorite is, Salniji, that there is a Tamil song which talks about a lot of grains.
Okay.
So one of the messages I got, and it's on, and I'll share the link also. It's on Twitter also. X now. That somebody created a CPI for all the grains which was talked about in that. CPI is Consumer Price Index, which basically talks about inflation, which talks about all the grains, and they just took the grain out of the song, that now wheat, and created CPI index for it. And they have named it like P index or something, which is like song's name. So I'm not very conversant, pardon me for that in Tamil, but I'll share that link. So that's my favorite use case. So what I mean to say, that people can use the data the way they like it. That's the bottom line. And that's what the NSO's idea is.
That's the most interesting use case I would have seen. And I really want to see it and say, I'll have a look at it. So one more thing which I want to tell the audience is that the work, several, like the use case Rohitji mentioned about, that someone can just pick the data. So we have created a concept called as data boarding pass. So this is a data boarding pass. This is like for AI Ready India. This is a physical copy, but actually the concept is that once your data is ready and it is it has a set of checklists which it passes, then as a B2B player, you could be a policymaker, you could be a researcher, you could be a market player wanting to build on top of it. You can take this this concept of data boarding pass and get onboarded onto the data for the data usage, so that you can pick that data and then start using it in your applications. So data boarding pass is, say at a district level, you have, and I'm just painting a scenario, you have a data commons where knowledge graph and data have been all combined together, created all together, right context and everything. And some organization wants to know, say the automobile MSME manufacturer wants to access it and give information to dealers as to where scooters are being sold, where motorcycles are being sold, and what's been the income of that region over a period of time. That can be possible now, right? So the data boarding pass enables it, makes it possible. And if you want to physically see it, how this exactly works, visit our booth at Ekstep Foundation on Hall 3 on the first floor. Do visit that, and my team would be there to show you the actual generation of the data boarding pass. I see you have
And
a
is there
question.
somewhere online they can go to look at it?
Databoardingpass.org. Yeah, do check it out, databoardingpass.org. I think we have given a lot of thing. I want to just, we have less time, but I want to take a couple of questions from the audience. So feel free to ask. We have 4 minutes, so we can have like 2, 3 questions from the audience. I saw that first, sorry, and then I saw you. So next you. Yeah, please go ahead. Can someone give him a mic, please? Otherwise, I'll hand mine.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you about the business models of these platforms, because it is obviously extremely important to have high quality data, but high quality data is also expensive to collect, to maintain in the time. So did you work, besides, on how you can maintain these kind of platforms during the time? Does it have to be, I don't know, publicly paid or whatever models you may have?
Yeah.
And it's also
You
for
go ahead, then
everybody,
I'll
I
also
think.
add. Then I'll also add.
So I just have a quick clarification on that. And National Statistics Office India is fully funded by the government of India. It's the, I mean, as we all know, National Statistics Office all over are like are funded through public money. So it's our job to create data and make it available to the public. At the same time, just one quick disclaimer on that open data is not free data. So somebody has paid for it. So depending on the use, we provide the data. So if the use is research and things like those, I'm not getting into details of it, then it's free. But if the resource, the use is commercial, then of course there is a system, there is a policy for it, and people have to pay accordingly.
Yeah. So I'll also answer it because we have done good amount of work. I would encourage you to see a paper that I've put up on our People Plus AI website, which talks about the give model for data. G is guaranteed trust, and we talked about it. I is incentive. Why should I bring the data? What will I get from it? The V is the value. If the data has no value, nobody is interested. And E is exchangeability, right? Which is, can I share the data? So I'll focus on the I, the incentive. There has to be an incentive for someone to bring the data. And there has to be an incentive for someone to use the data. And that value will be monetized. That is the data economy. If you ask me, this data economy is actually running without a formal mechanism. There's good amount of money people in selling data, buying data, lead generation. I mean, there's huge amount of things which are happening. This formalizes that. So there will be, but what will be the price? That the economy, the data economy, I mean, that has to stabilize. That has to happen at region level with private sectors. So we have been working in that direction so that the incentive model is clear, but the actual price is a discovery mechanism.
Thank you, and it's very interesting to hear all this. That's amazing. One of the very key scenario that we see every day, and we get little bit troubled, is we see a road getting made and dug after a few days. I mean, yeah, it might not feel good, but that's how it is, because it somewhere feels like a disconnection in the data or somewhere a decision in the policy making. So do we have some way to kind of get this kind of pieces applied in those, like, whatever the tender ecosystem or whatever that, like, you have a road made and then dug for a pipeline after, say, a very short window?
Yeah, maybe I'll answer it. See, if you see, India has put the whole digital public infrastructure in place. These are the DPI thinking, whether UPI, Aadhaar, DigiLocker, DigiYatra, they were about digital rails which were put together. This data infrastructure that we talked about today is going to be that rails. Is it going to be dug up? Maybe. Maybe. No promises, right? Is it going to be dug up? Are there going to be holes in that? Maybe. But I think it's a journey that if we don't do it and don't start it now, it's going to hit us later on. So, no promises, but yes. Rohiji, do you have to add anything on that?
Fine. I just wanted to add that we need to keep working on these data sharing platforms and other philosophies we just talk about, like accessibility, sharing, analysis, use of AI, and things will improve slowly but steadily. I'm very sure about it.
Yeah. Time is up, and the next session is going to start. So thank you so much for listening into the AI Ready Data, and please visit the booth to see it actually in action. Thank you. Bye.
You're an old hat. So, I mean, you got to take a photo with us. Yeah, you might cut